So we set up Telefonica Europe People Services as part of a broader European HR transformation program. We called it European People Services as part of the cultural design that we had in plan for the business. Other people might call it shared services or contact centers or call centers. In essence, some of the work that's done in such organizations is done within our European People Services organization. But actually we wanted to call it what it was, which was a group of people offering services to our people across Europe who all work for Telefonica. The goals of the People Services transformation and setup was very similar to the broader HR transformation activity, which was designed to deliver a great employee experience to our employees, who in turn deliver a great experience to our customers. That was the primary purpose. And we set our organization up similar to what you might understand to be set up within the Ulrich model, which was strategic business partners, centers of excellence, and a shared services operation that we call Telefonica Europe People Services. The goal was to set up a People Services Centre in Dublin in Ireland, with about 100 people there providing a broad range of HR services to our employees who were our customers across Telefonica Europe. We chose Dublin because I'm Irish. No, we chose Dublin for a number of locations, not just because I'm Irish. We chose Dublin for the fact that we could attract the skills that we needed, in particular the language skills, both attract those in the country and attract people from outside the country to come there. There is a very strong customer service ethos and mindset in Ireland, and also finally because we had some fantastic support from the Irish business and the Industrial Development Authority for Ireland in the setup. So the setup of the culture for the business was critical. It was a startup. It was a greenfield environment almost. We were in the same building as the Irish operating business, but effectively it was a startup business for all practical purposes. From a culture perspective, it was really important to get those things that were important right first time for us. So first of all, we knew we wanted to create an environment that didn't feel like a contact center or a call center. So if you go there today, you will not see flags hanging over desks saying which country someone works for. You will not see big screens on the walls saying calls waiting or anything like that, because actually that's not very motivational for an individual, because they work for Telefonica and they provide services to Telefonica businesses in Europe. The other thing we wanted to do to focus on the customer, the employee in this case, was we wanted our own people to create what our customer promise or what our customer service charter was going to be. And actually, so that was designed by the employees working there, not by the leadership team, but by the employees. And they live that promise every day, and that promise is around giving a great employee experience, and that's the heart of the culture. The other thing we decided to do was we recognized from lessons learned from other organizations that if you have someone spend all their time just doing the job they're employed to do, be that taking calls from customers, life can get very boring and very repetitive. So for every employee, we've built 20% of their time into other non-core activities for them, such as maybe they're appointed as the communications champion for the business. Maybe they're appointed as the employee representative champion for the business. So they get other things to do that is not just day-to-day answering calls or dealing with employee life cycle matters or whatever that might be, which gives them a variant to their job and an element of development as well. And that's pretty core to who we are and what we're about. Well, we had many challenges. We announced very publicly the business set up in May 2010, and we went live with our first service in October 2010 within 5 months, which was pretty rapid. We had many challenges, but I think the one constant challenge that stood out in terms of obstacles for change and realizing what we wanted to do was probably the HR function across Europe. There were many lessons learned on the journey. We went live with our last range of services in January of this year. So between October 2010 and January 2012, we have effectively migrated a lot of the services that previously largely sat in country to our European People Service Centre in Dublin. I think the biggest lesson learned for me was probably ensuring that your stakeholders, whoever they might be, really understand the journey and what the service will look like in practice. And in practice that will mean two things. One is that some of the people who previously did that work in country, their jobs clearly will be at risk. And secondly, you will need a change of working practices. If the vision was driven around common and consistent ways of doing things, that will mean change. And particularly for the HR community, that will mean a change in working practices. And back to the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge was not necessarily getting the customer, the employees and the managers in the business to adapt to using the service. That was very, very successful. I think the biggest challenge was getting the HR community, 95% of them who had never worked in this model before, or worked with the European People Services Centre like setup, to work in that way. I think first of all, transformation is an overplayed term. Transformation is about fundamentally changing the way you do things from one way to another. It is not just about change, it is about fundamentally changing the way you do things from one way to another. And therefore, in HR, that needs to be underpinned by not only a change of working practices, maybe some enabling technology, but very often a change in behaviour and mindset. I think if you're responding to a business need, and that's why you should be transforming. If you're transforming because you think it's the latest fad or it's the latest theory, then that's the wrong reason to be doing it. You're transforming because you need to transform for a business need. So therefore, what comes after transformation will be dictated not by the HR function, but by the business. What is the business need? If you are transforming, you're fundamentally changing the way you do things from A to B. And in doing that, in many occasions, many people have never experienced that new way of working or that transformation. My question to the group would be, how do you create that sense of belief and purpose? So on the 6th of December, I hope to share with those attending the story of our journey, why we created Telefonica Europe People Services Limited as a business in its own right, what's been the journey for the 111 people who now work in that business based out of Dublin, what's the insight I can share with many people who will be attending, who may have started this journey, may be thinking about starting the journey, or may have ended the journey and thinking about their next period of transformation. I think it's about trusting and empowering people to make the right decisions. So letting go, you have to let go when you're looking to set something like this up. We had a very aggressive timeline to set the business up and start delivering services. And while I recognise it was a huge change the way we had always done things across Europe, one thing in hindsight I would do again differently would be that I would be less consensual in our decision making and empower people maybe in different levels within the organisation to make decisions on behalf of the country. I think what happened was that decision making took place at too senior level, would just slow down decision making, and we could have moved faster.